Okay, I wanted to make a short video to talk a little bit about XPS foam. For our foam carving project, I included a link to the EPS foam, a good solid block of foam, which you can use as is. That block is big enough that you don't really have to laminate it. But I did want to show you an option, a less expensive alternative, the XPS foam, which is very similar to the EPS foam in its working qualities. The EPS foam is expanded polystyrene. The XPS foam, which you see here, which some people call pink foam, is basically insulation foam, is extruded polystyrene. So they're slightly different in their texture and density, but they have similar working qualities, and they're both popular for sculpture. Oftentimes these foams are used for creating props for trade shows and theater props, but fine artists, contemporary sculptors also have been using this kind of foam for a while now. So what I wanted to show you and talk about is the XPS foam and the EPS foam. If you go that route, if you purchase that or purchased it already, that's fine. The carving, the tools that I'm going to show you, the carving tools, and even laminating, if you wanted to buy two blocks and laminate those together to get a bigger block to work with, you could do that. So what I'm going to show you here is pertinent to the EPS as well. So the XPS foam, expanded polystyrene, is lightweight, inexpensive. You can find this in Home Depot. It's basically insulation foam, so you would find it in the insulation section or in that aisle. $6 for a 2 by 2 foot by 1 inch panel, and I already cut the panel down to this size. It's manageable. And to cut it, that's the first thing I'm going to show you. It's very simple. I mean, you can cut this on a bandsaw if you have a bandsaw, but if you have your Olfa knife, which is on the list, and a ruler and something that you can measure with, your ruler, if your ruler has increments, you can measure with that, or a tape measure. All you really need to do is measure, and what I'm going to do is measure 2 blocks of equal size and score. And whenever you're scoring something like foam or foam board, it's best to do it in a couple of passes. Now, I didn't go all the way through, but once you score it, you can snap that section off easily. And I'll do that again, so I have 2 blocks that are 5 by 5 inches. And this would be the basic idea as far as laminating, is to cut down the foam so you have blocks that are the same size. And the next step will be laminating. I'm going to show you how to laminate these 2 blocks together so you can begin building up a block. And you can do this as many times, build up or laminate as many blocks as you want, as you would like, so you can have a rectangular block to carve from. I'm going to show you how to do that using spray 45, spray adhesive, 3M. Spray 45 is similar to spray 77. If you have that, you can use it. You can also use hot glue, but that has to be a low temperature hot glue gun, a hot glue gun that you can change the temperature settings. Usually it's two temperature settings. So the main thing you want to do is have ventilation, for one thing, and have like a scrap piece of paper, something that you can put down on the surface, because this spray will get onto the surface surrounding the foam that we're spraying, and it's tacky. It'll stay tacky for a long time, and it'll create a mess. So something you can get rid of, old newspaper, plastic, drop cloth, anything, and good ventilation. So in order to laminate and to get a good strong bond, spray the surface of both panels nice and even, and let it dry for a minute or so. Okay, so it's been about a minute, and I have the 2 foam blocks. So I sprayed the surface of both pieces that I'm putting together, and I let the glue dry for a bit, and then the best thing obviously is to try and line them up as best you can. and put them together. Apply a little bit of pressure. It doesn't take much, but that's pretty much it here. That's one solid block made of 2 pieces of XPS foam using the spray 45 to laminate it. You can laminate as many small pieces as you want to create one large block. Once you've laminated the blocks, you can draw out your shape much as you would when making a wood carving and get rid of the excess. Normally we would do this using a bandsaw in the shop, which is what I did here in my studio. I cut the excess the corners off quickly with a bandsaw. I don't know what kind of tools you have access to. I take it most people don't have a bandsaw. Even a tabletop one would be good, but you can use probably a serrated bread knife. You can definitely use an electric carving knife or a bandsaw, just the blade. Not a bandsaw, I'm sorry. A hacksaw blade to get rid of the excess. Also, in terms of cutting foam, the quickest and cleanest way to do it is to use a hot wire gun or hot wire table. I put those items on the list as optional items because we're doing this as a project. That, you know, if somebody decides they want to continue carving with foam, that's great. In that case, you should definitely look into buying the tools that will help you create the cleanest, quickest cuts, like a hot wire gun or a hot wire table, or even an electric carving knife. So carving is relatively straightforward. Once you've cut off the excess, then you can begin using your Olfa knife. It should be sharp. These are breakable blades. Get rid of any dull sections. And using your knife, extend it as much as you need to. Simply begin carving using a sawing motion, a back and forth motion, and begin taking off a bit at a time. I can round off this corner, or edge rather, and just keep working from there. If you have rough spots, those can be sanded down. Anything you would do with wood, you can do with the foam. Sanding, you have your sandpaper from the previous project. And cleaning up, polishing the surface, making it smooth. You can use, well, you get the idea. If you wanted to create something a little more textured, then you can begin cutting into it. Give it a rougher look. Back and forth. Don't ever carve towards you. Don't do this. And you can, you know, of course, go in different directions. And if you're satisfied with the forms that you have, and if you do want to touch up, again, you can sand or you can use spackle, basic spackling paste, to fill in any gaps, seams from the lamination, create texture. Once it's dry, you can spray it with a primer and paint it with acrylic, which is what we're going to do. We should use paint on this project. This is a subtractive method of sculpture as opposed to an additive method when we're removing material, carving wood, foam, marble, stone. We're employing a subtractive method of carving, of sculpture rather, as opposed to an additive method of sculpture, which is what we do most of the time when we're doing mixed media assemblage, anything that we're adding different components, piecing different components together. And of course, it could be a combination of both, subtractive and additive. So a word of caution in terms of painting, we can use acrylic. Once you spray the foam with a primer, seal it with some kind of a primer, or even gesso, you can use acrylic paint on it. It's the easiest solution, best solution probably. The worst solution would be to use spray paint. Do not use spray paint. Any kind of spray paint on bare foam, the propellants and the pigments, the chemicals in the spray paint will just eat away at the foam and you'll see it melt before your eyes, literally. So do not use spray paint.